Is that part of your project, or did that come after the fact?
I think it came after.
Yeah, as a kind of structural concern.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to figure out how to hold it all together. As if you're starting a project with a bunch of foam balls, and then you're trying to keep them all together. Although I don't think that was a requirement given us. Axel did not write it that way, and I did not talk about it in those terms. Right now, sort of structural integrity is not a concern, but nevertheless, we introduced it into the project. So I would say that's a kind of secondary collection in your project. Your project is still made of basketball, golf, ball, whichever wind chime or whatever that is. What is that?
It's a piece from a Barbie toy.
Barbie's grand staircase?
It's not a staircase.
What else is there?
Just like this flower.
And is that a Lego flower?
Not really, but
And you know what you've done, first and foremost? Oh, I know. If Earth is this big, how big is the sun?
it's big.
And how big is the moon? Smaller.
Well, compared to the sun, yeah, but
So what you have, and so how big is a golf ball relative to a basketball? Now, there is huge scalar difference, right? Even though they're both spheres, regardless of whether it's orange or yellow or with dimples or made of 8 pieces of surface. Right? What you've done first and foremost is to scale everything until they're roughly the same scale. Okay? So yeah, because otherwise you started out with something this big and something this small anyway. You sort of impose a kind of scale consistency, and I think that's a mistake.
well, I didn't bring an actual basketball. I
Oh, you bought a
toy son.
toy
Yeah.
basketball. So
Yeah.
then that's incidental, the fact that everything is the same scale.
Yeah.
Even then, I think that should immediately be an issue because there's no scalar difference. This project has lots and very repetitive. Right? But there is no sort of big or small, or long or short. Right? Even in terms of geometry, round, and even that is sort of round for the most part.
Yeah.
Right? So there's really no sort of contrast of any kind. And that said, were you looking to have a kind of difference?
I think when we brought the toys, it was mostly of what we saw in common with them that we talked about mostly, rather than its differences.
Yeah, and Frank Gehry would look for exactly the opposite. Right? And everybody's familiar with Frank Gehry's work, and some of you in first year had done sort of a couple of case studies of Frank Gehry. And Frank Gehry during sort of Frank Gehry 2.0, started from the Gehry house, from his own house in Santa Monica. What he is a kind of deconstructivist aggregator. So he breaks everything apart into different pieces, right? And then he composes a pile of stuff. And every time he's trying to use something silver, something red, something blue, something chain link, something corrugated, something wood, something big, something small, something tall, something round, something shiny. So in Gary's sort of architecture, he is looking for first sort of all the different things. So there's a kind of variety. And as a kind of formal variety or as a kind of spatial variety, when you're inside, look at the size of this room. Look at the wall that's curving. Look at how long the space is. So look how shiny this is. Look how sort of dark this is. So I think this project is looking to create difference. Or you haven't tried to create difference yet, but it's lacking difference. Or do you think there is difference?
So I think it was more built on similarities than differences.
There would be greater difference if you look at this drawing. There's a kind of density difference. The positive objects in your project are sort of very repetitive, redundant, but the space in between is always different. Right? So in this case, you are able to find some, because you made everything the same, the only difference you yield is how they are in relationship to one another. This is sort of feel, condition, understanding, feel has to do with not form, not space. Has to do with everything in relationship, right? And oftentimes it's a kind of localized relationship. Um, did you guys go to LACMA on a field trip? And did you guys see the street urban light project in front? Right? That's sculpture not as an object, that's sculpture as a field of objects. So it's all about sort of walking through and the way things line up in this direction and things. Right? So it's just in relationship. That's the fundamental sort of intelligence of understanding architecture as field. Everything in relationship. So you have all the different distance, the different kind of placement of X, Y, and Z. In theory, you have all kinds of different sort of conditions in between. And to give a different analogy, what about, can everybody picture the forget about Farnsworth now. Can everybody picture the Barcelona Pavilion? And if you think of Barcelona Pavilion as just an arrangement of lines in plan, and then there might have been sort of one U or J shape here. Right? But think about all the space in between and how some spaces are sort of where the living room would be. Right? Some are almost a hallway that's longer than else. So in theory, even with very similar pieces, you can achieve that kind of variation in between them. Except the stick comes back into play because the stick is not sort of infinitely telescoping. Right. That kind of restricts how far you can place all these objects. You always need to place them sort of close in vicinity so you can connect them. So I think it's still working against you in this project to try to creating difference. And creating differences, and Ashley knows, creating difference has to do with what you have not been given is the real requirements of this project. When I say did you win, well, you're supposed to design an airport. Does this work as an airport? You're supposed to design a restaurant. Does this work as a restaurant? Right? In that case, you have actual terms with which, in that case, program or function with which to inform how you design the project. Oh, I need a space this big. I'm building a bowling alley, and I need this condition. But you don't know any of that. You don't know what the actual requirements are. So in the interim, right, then what's the requirement for yourself? Okay. Consistency is a requirement. And because you were looking for almost similar objects with sort of shared DNA, right? You carefully build a kind of collection with things that are round, right? So that's a commonality. Right? And that's a kind of perceived rigor. I very carefully chose a collection. And there are some sort of commonalities. So what you are hoping to achieve, or what you hope to introduce into your project is that it's rigorous and that you have control of how you are working. But rigor is sort of not a requirement. Rigor is sort of, ideally everybody pursues work rigorously, right? But it's not sort of, you cannot declare victory in a project. You cannot win in a project by saying, oh yeah, but I am rigorous and this project is process driven and I can explain every step. I can walk you through every step that I made. Right? And you probably know how many basketballs there are and how many golf balls there are and how many Barbie staircases there are. Yeah, you have rigor and you have consistency, but what else is in the project? And you have structural integrity, actually. Even though, how many people took structural integrity into concern, into the project? And you are picturing how this could be built, and in the model, how you can pick it up and shake it around without it falling apart. How many people address that in the project? You did. I just want to know if Jenna required that, or that's sort of your personal requirement.
Well, I didn't really use the sticks as like a structural kind of thing, because at the first I just had the circular objects just piled up on each other, maybe like intersecting. Because yeah, there's like you have like the basketball right here, but then you have some sticks laying on the floor. But it's not like I purposely put them there so they could stand.
Yeah, but still, is the stick always touching multiple objects? Or no, are they just some of them floating?
Some of them are floating. You can see not all sticks like intentionally float. Like right here, obviously it sits on the ball, but like if you rotate it that way, the stick would just fall.
So at the end, the real payoff of this project is when you post-shade the space in between. A number of sections have decided to go ahead and post-shade everything in black and white to highlight what's solid and what's void or in between them. And for me, in this project, the real payoff is in the negative space. And you have to sort of understand this project on that term. Well, I chose a bunch of the same things, and I chose multiples of the same thing. But look how much difference I can create using only one nearly standardized set of stuff. And right now, that doesn't come forward yet in your project. You haven't made us look at all the space in between. So yeah, like that project far corner, right? There's a difference between the aggregated solid into this mega amalgamated mass, and then sort of the black is sort of void in between or around. Which other project would you like to talk about?